why they are being detained, and the other aspects of your question, whether it's because they're in intelligence services or what they were doing, I will defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI to answer that.
Beyond the 60 apprehended or detained and many deported since September 11th, another group of 140 Israeli individuals have been arrested and detained in this year in what government documents describe as, quote, an organized intelligence gathering operation designed to, quote, penetrate government facilities. Most of those individuals said they had served in the Israeli military, which is compulsory there, but they also had, most of them, intelligence expertise and either worked for Amdocs or other companies in Israel that specialize in wiretapping. Earlier this week, the Israeli embassy here in Washington denied any spying against or in.
Now I'll talk about the connection between Averts and the London bombings. Some of you may be surprised that in September 2004, Averts was involved also with video surveillance, signed a contract with the City of London involving video surveillance in the London Underground. And that happened just about prior to a year to the London bombings. And more than 2 years have passed since the London bombings. And to this day, Averts and British authorities have failed to provide to the British public any video footage of the alleged 4 London bombers boarding the trains from their platforms, when we know that Averts must have these cameras on their platforms, as stated in press reports. Now, there is a research from Britain. His name is Nafis Ahmed, who's done extensive research on this, on the London bombings, and his book has been highly regarded by award-winning journalist John Pilger and also American historian Gord Vidal. Now, what he states is that the press reports, the times of when these so-called bombers boarded the trains, does not, the times do not match the time length, time schedule. For example, according to press reports, they state that the London bombers boarded the train at Luton Station at 7:40 and then arrived at King's Cross at around 8:30, and the train and the so-called bombers went their own way at King's Cross at 8:30. But according to the time schedule, Mr. Ahmed says that the 7:40 train at Luton was cancelled, and the 7:46, the next train from Luton 7:46, was postponed until 7:56. Now this would have forced the bombers to have arrived at King's Cross way past 8:30. So which one is correct? A British inquiry, which Mr. Tony Blair has refused, would definitely help clear up these matters. But unfortunately, we have not been given the privilege of having a clear up on this issue. And also, by the way, we've only seen grainy footages of the bombers. If you look carefully, there's a shot of 3 to 4 people, if I recall correctly, going into a building, which is very grainy. It's not even, we see no train there, and the time reads 7:21. But again, we're on the platform shots. And then there are the terror drills that were going on in the morning of London bombings. Now, surely Averts must have video footage of these bombers boarding these platforms with all their rhetoric about sophistication and reliability that Dauphin, Trudel, and Jean Lapierre was Minister of Transport at the time, and as was interviewed in that Canada interview, they seem to be quite happy with this sophistication despite the shitty history of Averts. Now, Averts must have been on high alert during the morning of the London bombings, because according to Peter Bauer, advisor, consultant, and managing director, formerly from Scotland Yard, an authority on crisis management, stated on British TV on the morning of the London bombings that they were running a terror drill involving over 1,000 people based on simultaneous bombs going off precisely at the railway stations where it happened.
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organization, but the crisis teams
And the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the Underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real. And one of the first things is, get that bureau number. When you have a list of people missing, tell them. And it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario.
Almost precisely. I was until 2 o'clock this morning because it's our job, my own company, Viper Consultants. We specialize in helping people to get their crisis management response. How do you jump from slow time thinking to quick time doing? And we chose a scenario with their assistance, which is based on a terrorist attack because they're very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city, and there are more American banks in the city than there are in the whole of New York. A logical thing to do. And I've still got
how extraordinary today must feel for you as it unfolds.
He repeated himself to BBC Radio 5.
The thing that concerns me is what are we doing for the thousands of men and women actually who are in London working? And I say that because at 9:30 this morning we were actually running an exercise for over a company of 1,000 people in London based on simultaneous bombs going off precisely at the railway stations that happened this morning. So I still have the hairs on the back of my legs standing upright.
It's quite straight. You were running an exercise to see how you would cope with this, and it happened while you were running the exercise.
Precisely. And it was about 9:30 this morning. We planned this for a company, and for obvious reasons I don't want to reveal their name, but they're listening, they'll know it. And we had a room full of crisis managers for the first time they met. And so within 5 minutes we made a pretty rapid decision. This is the real one. And so we went through the correct drills of activating crisis management procedures to jump from slow time to quick time thinking and so on.
If we use a standard actuary employed by major insurance companies to calculate the probability of these events coinciding in a 10-year mean, we learn that the probability of this happening is greater than 1 in 300 tetragillion. To put that in perspective, that's a number with 41 zeros behind it. That is trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and still more trillions times greater than all the grains of sand in all the world. To put that number in perspective, it has 41 zeros. Scientists using supercomputers have estimated that the Earth has over 7 quintillion grains of sand. A quintillion has 18 zeros.
Mr. Power, we'd like to know who are running mock terror drills 4 on 7/7. Which company were you working for? You say there's a precise times at the precise 3 stations. Have you any comment on that? Why have you not been investigated or the company investigated? Why do you not investigate, Mr. Power? 52 people died in those bombings and stuff. 52 people died in those power. Your duty to investigate the first, you've done nothing. 52 people died, Mr. Power. How do you know which 3 stations? Who helped you choose those 3 stations? How many people knew before the event? How many people knew, Mr. Power? Oh, sorry, I've got to go in here. Was it tube line? How many of the clients knew that those were simulated targets?
So let me get this right. Over 1,000 people have took part in this exercise. So all these people have high alert and still no video shots. Peter Bauer, by the way, serves on the advisory board to the Canadian Centre for Emergency Preparedness, together with Richard Schreier, Vice President of Giuliani and Partners, who was previously Commissioner at the New York City Office of Emergency Management and Director of New York City Homeland Security. Coincidentally, Giuliani stated to the Nottingham Commission that the New York Department of Justice biowarfare exercise was scheduled for September 12, 2001, the day following 9/11, which just happened to be close enough to the World Trade Center to immediately move and secure the area. And by the way, the debris was never analyzed despite it being the largest crime scene in U.S. history. Now, I wish to talk about former mayor of New York City, Mr. Giuliani, Averts. One of Averts' directors, Howard Safer, was a close associate of Mr. Giuliani, and the New York Firemen's Union. Mr. Giuliani came into the picture again during the London bombings because he was near where one of the bombs went off the morning of the London bombings. And Mr. Giuliani is currently under fire from the Firemen's Union, as documented on the website Rudy Urban Legend, for what was due to his poor leadership that they say that their brothers from the New York Fire Department died on 9/11.
He was running on his 9/11 leadership, and there was lacking and there was none.